bit of a cliche that for everything involving legal technology, the technology always breaks. My joke is always, you can tell a legal tech influencer because we know nothing about legal or tech. Anyway, Kelly Jones, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, everybody, we're doing this thing again. We've done this before where we hang out in the Facebook group and we talk to practitioners. We talk to people who are helping solos to try to be better in their practice. You guys have the ability to ask questions live if you are on Facebook. You could just put the questions in the comments below, and I will see them, is the rumor, and I will add them. We'll also take this conversation, we'll move it over to YouTube and to the Lawyer Forward podcast. Make sure if you have not subscribed to the Lawyer Forward podcast to do that. It's what all the cool kids do. And I think that's it for business. All right. So, Kelly, with the caveat that we may be interrupted at any moment by questions popping up from super interested viewers, tell me a little bit about you. You are a solo in New York. Have I got that right?
Yes, I am. I am officially just crossed the line of my 1 year anniversary of forming my PLLC this week. And I've been a lawyer though for about I guess 7 years now. But I just finally went out on my own last year during the pandemic.
Okay. And what I want to talk to you about, the teaser that I put in the text to invite people to come and watch this, is that I want my kids to respect me, and they don't respect me unless I know about Instagram. So you're gonna you're gonna tell me a little bit about finding clients on Instagram, which I just found fascinating. All right, before we get to the Instagramming, but which that's what they call a hook, right? Like you guys, that we're going to talk about being an online influencer, so you don't have to have a real job anymore. These are the things that my kids tell me. So you don't have to have a real job anymore. That's coming up later. First, Kelly, before you practice solo, tell me about your practice experience before that. You said you've practiced for about 7 years.
Yeah, so I worked for two different nonprofits doing mainly guardianship work. Um, Also a little bit of immigration and landlord tenant, kind of like random things in the nonprofit world. And then after that, I moved into working at a small private litigation firm, doing no fault insurance, other commercial litigation stuff, small claims, um, pretty much any random thing in pretty much any New York court. And then I was never really a huge fan all those years at the small firm of going to court. So then that's why when I went out on my own, I did something completely different and moved into the trademarks and contract space.
Yeah, and I want to talk about your business model because it's really interesting. And just as an aside, a little plug, I wrote an ebook for Clio called Designing Your New Normal, I think it is. They wanted to use New Normal. I'm not in charge. The point is, it's over at clio.com/new normal, and it's about business model design. And one of the things that are included in that business model design is your pricing structure and some of the delivery stuff. You do things different, if I understand. You have a legal club, a legal membership. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I do that for my non-legal services. So basically it's something that's only in the online space pretty much, but a lot of online lawyers have contract template shops or pretty much just shops for non-legal things for all different types of contract templates for the online business owner. And then also sometimes either legal workshops or courses to help with the trademarks, copyright, other things. And these are kind of more cost effective, I guess, options, especially with the online business owner who generally does not want to spend the amount that brick and mortar businesses kind of know that they have to spend on startup costs. So a lot of my membership is all contract templates, legal workshops, group calls to kind of talk about legal information, not legal advice. Um, and yeah, so it's kind of a more affordable option for the new
Boy, you
entrepreneur.
are toeing the line, and I mean that's the thing. Like anytime you start innovating these business models, you start walking a fine line that's not figured out until somebody goes and make something, right? And the thing I talk about all the time is that lawyers get so scared of the rules, they stay so far away from them. Like, it's our job to go figure out as business owners where the barriers of that is. So in your model, where's the pivot? When do they go from, oh, they're following me and they're getting some info and it's cool and high five internety, to we have an attorney client relationship? Where's the line?
Yeah, so that happens, and I kind of have that's something that I've had to really learn like how to say. But it's kind of like when they're asking, if someone asks like how long is the trademark process, that's something where I'll just be like, it's like about a year or whatever,
Right.
kind of basic thing. But when they start, adding in their own fact pattern or something, like a lot of times my answer as lawyers for any topic is pretty much it depends.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this kind of crosses the line into more like legal advice. And for that, we really need to form some type of relationship, actually have a legal consultation, and you'd have to retain me as your attorney. And, because of licensing rules, that's
Yeah.
something that I really can't give you a better answer to other than it depends,
Yeah.
which, people don't always love to hear, but we
Yeah.
gotta do
I mean,
that.
I've seen a lot of people who basically like the way they draw the line is they say, I'm gonna create distance by broadcasting, right? So I'm gonna blog, or I'm gonna write an ebook, or I'm gonna put a podcast out. I don't think anybody reasonably thinks, I listen to your podcast, we now have an attorney-client relationship. That's sort of ridiculous. Like, I think at an extreme, we could say that's safe. And then to your point, maybe the other pole is you and I sat down, you told me your life story, I gave you answers that were formulated for your particular circumstance. Maybe that's the other pole. You're somewhere in the middle and playing with that. It sounds like you do some engaging, though. Like, there are one-on-one conversations or one-to-many conversations. You're not just broadcasting, you are personally showing up, right? So tell me about that. What does that engagement look like?
Yeah, so my membership really is just starting. So I don't really know exactly what it's
Right.
going to look like, but I have done a lot of where I'll go into other people's programs and talk to them.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Like guest workshop type stuff. That's pretty much what a lot of what I've been doing the last year. And so that I kind of like, I have my kind of like a presentation on like different topics, and then they will stop and like ask questions, and I try to just be careful to keep everything fairly general, and also that there's so many different outcomes for everything, that like every business is different, every person is different. So I just try to be really careful with like keeping things more general and telling them that they can book like a one-on-one call if they want like
Mm.
specific legal advice. And I think like people that are not lawyers always think it's funny when like in the beginning of every like Instagram live or every guest workshop, I'm like, this is not legal advice. I am not your attorney. And they're like, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't think you were, but
Yeah, it is. I mean, I got my attorney from Instagram. Yeah, I it again, I this is not legal advice. Like, it is such a fascinating thing to try to figure out where that line is, and I do think that attorneys who own their own firm and just are like, "Oh, I'm staying totally far away from that and I'm not engaging at all," they're really shirking their duty in my mind. Like, if you own a business, you got to figure out where the lines are. You're literally hired by companies to tell them where lines are. Do the work, figure out where your lines are. I know it's fluid, and I know I have a higher risk tolerance than other people do, because if they disbarred me, I'd say, shoot. And I'd be totally emotionally okay with myself. Some of you are really excited about your law degree, and I understand that. So I love you. I think you're weird, but I'm the weird one. So speaking of Instagram, now I am not on. Do people still call it the gram? I was about to say I'm not on the gram. Do the kids still call it the gram? Did anybody ever call it the gram? Did they call it Insta?
they
Instagram's too many
definitely
syllables for kids.
they definitely called it both. I'm not really sure what the kids are calling it now
Mm-mm.
though.
Whatever it is that I pick, do the opposite. So anyway, the gram. Uh, I am not on there. I'm on Twitter. I hate LinkedIn, but I'm there. And I'm on Facebook, even though I have to like push through my mom's political, ideas in order to get to the Lawyer Forward Facebook group. I love all of you for pushing through that. Um, so Instagram is an image-driven social media platform, right? Like it's picture-driven. Um,
Yeah.
but they have video as well, and it sounds like they have live as well. All of them are like molding, like blending together. But it sounds like they have. So what are you using? What are the features you're using on Instagram that are working for your law firm?
Yeah, so actually recently, Instagram has really been trying to keep up with YouTube and TikTok. So they basically have decided that they are no longer just a photo sharing app and they are really focusing a lot on video. So Instagram Reels is a lot of what I focus on, which is basically the same as TikTok, but Instagram's version of like, 60-second video content. So that is one of the main things that I'm focusing
Right.
on Instagram right now, just because it is a little bit newer for Instagram. So they are pushing it out more than, a regular static like picture or something.
Yeah.
So that is kind of what I am focused on. And I do reels and I kind of repurpose the same video for reels and for TikTok.
It sounds like all of these things, they'll have features that pop up, right? So, like Twitter, for example, my team and I were having this conversation about Twitter, and Twitter added a newsletter feature, and it probably won't last. Like everybody who talks about the newsletter feature on Twitter knows that it's not going to get enough engagement. There's not going to be enough people doing it. It won't work, and it'll end up dying. But in the meantime, Twitter really wants it to work, and so they will broadcast it like crazy. I mean, they will feature it like crazy. They'll move it up in the rankings so that you see it in your thread. It sounds like Instagram's sort of doing the same thing. So, in as much as like you're testing things, you're not just testing things. It sounds like, or at least the benefit of this is not just, oh man, I get first mover advantage or whatever. It's also that Instagram is moving people who are doing these new features up to the top. You really get a lot of cheap attention by doing these new features. Does that register? Does that check out?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want
Joey,
you to use their
jo-
new features.
yeah.
So,
Our friend Joey Vitale is watching. He said, "Michael, my man, Joey, how are you?" Joey is a social media superstar, and I think, and I hate quoting Gary Vaynerchuk. It on so many levels he bugs me. But one of the things that he talks about that I totally agree with is like you're doing like attention arbitrage. You just find out where is the attention the cheapest. Can you get the most for the investment, whether it's time or money? And then you're not married to it, right? Like you don't have to do it forever. If something else becomes useful and the attention is high and the cost is low, then jump over to that. And so you're just sort of jumping. But it sounds like we only have so many content mediums, right? You've got the written word, you've got video, you've got audio. Is video your thing? Is that how you like to create?
yeah, it's definitely what I focus on the most, and it wasn't really by choice. I guess it was just by, everyone being on or more people being on TikTok and now Instagram pushing reels that
Right.
I kind of just decided like, okay, well, if this is where I potentially can get seen the most, then I'm gonna, put the most time into that types
Mm.
of content.
Well, I have this debate about winning social media, and you can tell me your perspective on this because you can win. So I'll just give the example. I have a show called the Contract Teardown Show that I do with Law Insider, where we take contracts and we beat them up like a specific contract. We don't talk like general principles. I mean that's in there, but we're trying to root it in a document. And we did. Kanye West had a freaking breakdown on Twitter. It was awesome about his recording contracts. And for one day, one glorious shining day, contract lawyers felt like we're the cool kids, and so it got. They weren't the cool kids, but it felt like that for a day, and so it was all over the place. And that video I think is one of our most viewed of the videos, and it's not because the contract, this is how you do plain language interpretations. Ross Guberman's famous. Let's go to. It's because it's freaking Kanye. And
Hmm.
we've done enough YouTube videos that it'll transcribe it, and so people can search Kanye's contracts, and you land on that. I don't know what the relationship is with like the more exposure you get, the more crap exposure you're going to get, right? The more irrelevant exposure you're going to get. But if you don't get exposure, then your people aren't there either. You still have to have a mass of people. What's your relationship with creating for this? Do you have a sense of, am I creating for a bunch of people who could never hire me? Do you use it in some other way, maybe repurpose it so that you're like, well, at least I can move it over to this other kind of value? How are you maximizing the group that you're dealing with on Instagram?
Yeah, so I definitely feel that way, sometimes more so with TikTok than Instagram too. Because I've definitely had some like viral videos and like
Wait.
obviously.
Viral videos about what? Like legal advice, or do you have cats?
So actually, my biggest viral video was on TikTok. It's like, I think right now it's like over 500,000 views and stuff. But it was actually an LLC video. It
Wow.
was at the four things that you need to do after you have your LLC. And yeah, I posted it just like I was posting all my videos. And then the next day I woke up, it had like 10,000. And then like 2 days later, it was at like
Isn't that the
200,000. And
weirdest
then,
thing? Like people try
yeah,
to create formulas for this crap, and it's not just. It's just. Did you have a cat in the background? Was there like a
no,
cat on your shoulder, like
it
Mr.
was just
Rogers' cat just sitting on you and is like, I love LLCs. That didn't happen. That's what I would
now
do.
it's just me talking fast and
Ugh,
having
it's
talking
crazy.
about LLCs.
Anyway,
Yeah.
back to your story. So you had that one blow up, and in terms of like returns, how did that work out for you?
I actually, because I was prepared ahead of time, I already had like my website link in
Mm,
my TikTok bio to my like free legal cheat sheet. I had a tripwire attached for like a $12 product, like a business plan. So I actually had like a lot of, I mean, I don't know, not a lot, I guess like I think like $500 from that $12 product. And then I got like 15,000 followers on TikTok from it just
mm,
in that like week span. And some of them have turned into future client, or they, over the last couple of months have turned into clients. So even though like a lot of those 15,000, or now I think I have a little more than that, followers are just there for like the free stuff. Some of them have hired me, and some of them have referred me to other people who can afford to hire me.
mm.
So I think, that's the benefit of it really.
Let me ask you something that's a bit more meta, right? This is a bit more what we're doing with media in the modern economy in general. Um, there's a lot of value to audience now, and the idea is that if you did the work to build an audience, there are just a bunch of ways to extract value from that audience. There's a really good book by Jaron Lanier called Who Owns the Future, that's about like Facebook wants us to go on and create a bunch of content for Facebook, like they're the ones making money off of it. How do we get that money from that attention to get to the people who are doing the productive labor, which is you and me? It's not Facebook. They have a tiny staff, and since we're all spending all this time creating this value, like it's a huge social problem if we can't transfer that value. So anyway, how you capture the value of that audience is like a huge deal. For you, it sounds like you're only currently doing it in the delivery of services. Like there's a really like direct line between over here you're my fan, over here you bought a thing, and that thing was this one thing that I sell. Do you ever think about like, could I figure out other ways to extract value from this group? But it sounds like this membership thing that you did is one of those things. You're like, look, they're not going to hire me to file their trademark, but they might like want business advice from a lawyer. Let's put it in that bucket. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. About like, yeah, finding different things for, I know a lot of the people that follow me can't afford to file a trademark or can't afford custom contracts from me even, because, obviously a custom contract is going to be a lot more expensive. So
Right.
it's kind of about like finding like more affordable solutions for them. And that's where like my contract templates come from, and also the membership.
Mm, so interesting. Just reminds me of a conversation I had with a guy named Alex Hamilton who runs a company called Radiant Law, and we were talking about accessibility, just that skill of trying to make it easier for people to buy something from you that helps them, right? This accessibility thing. And he said, well, I don't think anybody's ever, he's got this really posh British accent that always makes me feel like an idiot when I talk to him. But he said, nobody would ever call me like a saint who does access to justice. And I was like, okay, first of all, nobody's calling you a saint. I love that you just jumped to that. Second, accessibility, like the same skills that solve the access to justice gap can make money for the entrepreneurial, lawyer. They're the same thing. It's just figuring out how to identify a problem for an audience, provide a solution. And I think it's really cool that you're using TikTok the gram as a way to like attract people that you can then sort of, it sounds like you're kind of culling data from them a little bit. Like the more they ask questions, you're like, oh, this is a cool feedback loop. I should answer that. Put that in my membership. Is that basically how that's building over time?
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of really see like what will people like kind of engage more with and stuff. Sometimes I've been trying to do some trademark posts recently about
Mm-hmm.
different marks that are too similar to each other, but relating it to an actual example. Like one was Kim Kardashian's brand Skin, I think a new one. She didn't come out yet, Skin or something. And there's another one that's similar. So like people are more interested in that because they're like, oh, what is Kim Kardashian doing now? So where I don't really follow the Kardashians or anything, so I would have no idea that people are like interested in that.
Right.
But then so it's kind of a lot of trial and error of seeing like what people are really interested in. And even some, I continuously go back and post like every couple of months just a basic like graphic breakdown of the difference between trademarks and copyrights. And I think like, well, I've already posted that like 3 months ago, so
Yeah.
and then it still gets the most saves. I'm like,
Talking to the internet is like talking to my children. You can say the same thing over and over again, and hilariously, they'll go hear it from somebody else. They'll come back to you and go, "Oh my gosh, I heard the most brilliant thing," and you're like, "Mother, I've been saying that to you for like 5 years." Okay, maybe this is personal, but anyway, um, yeah. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about that I think is interesting is just it sounds like you've been fully virtual. I mean, went solo during the pandemic. You've had no choice. How's that impacted it? The business that you do, it sounds like clients don't expect to knock on a door and see you. Is that right?
yeah, definitely. I think also, when you're using Instagram, you kind of like
Mm,
figure out what type of client you are like marketing to, and
yeah,
mine are a lot of like online business owners.
yeah,
So I think because they run their business like all virtually for the most part, that they are like kind of more okay with like us having a Zoom consultation and stuff and expecting that. And also that like they contact me via like email or stuff. Like no one calls me. I don't get calls to my like zero calls. Meanwhile, other lawyers, might get only
drowning.
calls.
Yeah.
But my clientele, they're like, I'm not gonna call you. Like I don't want to talk to you on the phone.
Yeah, I don't call basically any of the SaaS companies that I buy things from. And I think it's interesting to your point. Like, if you do marketing that you like, you're going to attract the kind of people who like that kind of marketing. So, like, if you put a billboard up, everything works. No matter what anybody says, literally, if you're willing to put enough money, it's just math. Everything works. Everything will get you clients. But if you put a billboard up with a phone number, you're going to get the kind of clients who call phone numbers off of billboards. If talk out loud on the gram, you're going to get the kind of client who spends a lot of time on the gram listening to people talk, right? Like your marketing is itself a selection, sort of a filtering tool, which I think is cool. All right, so what's coming up for you? What are you going to experiment with next? Are you going to stay limited to the gram, or are you moving to other social? Is it better to go deeper on the place that you like? What do you think? What's coming up for you in terms of experiments?
Um, I think right now I'm definitely keeping my focus, I think, on Instagram and TikTok, just because that's where I'm seeing success and that's what I like. I've tried to like move over to like LinkedIn, hate LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not worked for I know it works for some people, not for me. So I think I'm going to really stick with like the short video content because Reels and TikTok might not be prioritized the way that they are for ever or even, a year from now. So I think like my focus is um, going right now where they're being prioritized for until they aren't anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then figuring out
Yeah.
what's next.
Yeah, that cheap attention, just keep chasing it.
Yeah.
Before we part ways, I wanted to answer Joey's question you might have insight on. He said, I'm committed to doing Reels, but Instagram currently isn't giving me the feature. Any tips on how to get it if it doesn't appear as an option? Are they just like, as far as you know, are they just sort of randomly assigning it to different people, the feature?
So that's interesting because I haven't really heard of anyone that doesn't have reels
It's
at
just
all,
Joey. Joey, you
unless
have
you're
been
not in the
excluded.
US.
Yeah, you have been excluded. They're after you, Joey. We can't solve that for you. You're
But you
just
can try to ask Instagram because, like, contacting them, I've heard that help with like one person that had reels and then lost them.
mm.
So that might be a
Yeah,
solution.
Twitter does this thing to me where they randomly, give out these different features. And now, anytime I'm on Twitter, so they've got this newsletter feature now. Anytime I'm on Twitter and I hit the button to add to like start threading a post, it goes, "Hey, Wordsmith, we've got newsletters now." Like it's basically saying, nobody cares about your stupid thread. Don't put one of 47. Just write a freaking newsletter. We're going to give you the feature. So, Joey, I think the way to get the feature is just to be more annoying on the internet. That's how they hand those out. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with us, Kelly. If people want to reach out to you and connect and learn more about your firm, but also just how you're that pipeline of this attention into, you know, retain services, but also that I really think that middle portion is really interesting because attention, like, stop thinking about attention as the thing to get somebody to buy your very specific legal services and start thinking about your audience as people you can serve in multiple ways. Like I preach this all the time. But anyway, if people want to talk to you about how you do that, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You could definitely DM me on Instagram at lawyer Kelly with an I underscore. Or you can email me Kelly with an I at kellyjoneslaw.com.
Cool. And for your so called moment of Zen before we part ways, I'm going to share with people, if I can, my screen. And the reason is because on Twitter, I shared an image of my Vespa. Okay, so you don't care about this, but I bought a purple Vespa. It's like an eggplant purple Vespa. I just rode it. I went over to Target for nothing. I didn't have to go to Target, but before our call, I was like, I'm going to Target. Everybody, get yourself a Vespa. It's like having a roller coaster in your house. You can ride it around and have happiness. That's the secret. Kelly, thanks for hanging out with us. The rest of you, be well. Reach out if you need anything. We will talk to you guys later. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.